Video from my July 9th, 2014 night dive at Betts Park. I was testing out the new Macromate Mini and the plus 10 adapter from Backscatter on this dive. My first subjects were target shrimp, and with this new macro adapter you can really see where they derive their name. There's bullseyes on the left and right side of each shrimp. Some even have a red dot in the middle. There were also quite a few flatfish. This is a right-eyed flatfish, so my guess is it's not a California halibut. I'm thinking it's more likely a California sole, which is a predominantly right-eyed fish species. I began filming him using the plus 10 adapter, and then flipped over to the Macromate Mini to give you some idea of the distances that you have for focusing. Another, what I believe to be California sole. This one was mottled in color. The Macromate Mini has a focusing distance of about 3 to 3.5 inches using the GoPro 3 Black. The focusing distance is a little bit shorter with the GoPro 3 Plus. They include a little stick that you can use to measure the distance between you and your subject. My settings were 60 frames per second, narrow field of view, Pro Tune off. There were navanax everywhere. Interesting to note about the navanax, and I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, they're not actually a nudibranch. They are carnivorous, and they feed on other nudibranches and other sea slugs. There was a navanax right next to an octopus, right next to a shrimp. The navanax were mating, and being hermaphroditic, there would be two that would inseminate each other and produce an egg nest. Here's an up-close shot of one in my brother's hand. They really are gorgeous for being in the middle of a sand barren off of the Redondo Beach Pier. These guys are found mostly in the kelp detritus that's north of the Betts Park staircase. Here we see one of the bubble nests that they make. It looks like some complex fractal pattern, but if you notice, each of the white lines is actually a series of white eggs. Pay close attention, you'll be able to see the individual eggs as the nest sways in the water. Here's a Eastern Pacific red octopus. Anybody who dives at Betts Park knows that they're all over the place. They're about the size of a ping pong or golf ball. The Macromate Mini allowed me to get really close with really good, crisp zoom. You'll have to forgive me, there's quite a bit of octopus footage in here. They're one of my favorite. It's amazing to see the octopus change both their pigmentation and their skin tone as they attempt to blend into their surroundings. I've seen octopus bury themselves up to their eyes in the sand, so they look like a flatfish as you swim by. But you kind of poke near them and they pop out and go jetting off to the side. I haven't spotted any two-spot octopus. The two predominant species in the area are the two-spot and the Eastern Pacific red octopus. I believe that all of the ones here are Eastern Pacific red. The lights that I'm using are two 120-degree beam angle 900 or so lumen lights that I purchased from Macro spear guns. They were about $50 each. I have them set far enough back on my GoPro housing that I don't get a lot of backscatter. It's critical that you don't put them in line with the lens because all the particulates in the water will flare and will ruin your shot. As you can see, there were a ton of copepods that were swimming in the water. They were attracted by the light. And as you'll see in upcoming clips, some of the fish really loved them. There was a very large octopus at the bottom of this pipe. JP spotted him, but he didn't want to come say hi. There were several sarcastic fringeheads that were inside the emptied out shell of various turban snails. I couldn't get one to fully open its mouth. If you see pictures of them, it's quite amazing how large their mouth really is. But if you watch carefully as I'm filming, you'll nip at the copepods that are swimming by and take a bite. I thought this was a good face shot. This guy's quite wrinkly. Here's a little rockfish who's darting from side to side eating the various copepods. He was actually happy that I was there that evening. I have no idea what this fish is. If anybody knows, please tell me. But I was fortunate enough to observe the behavior of him backing into the sand and burying himself. And what's a dive at Vets Park without some baby horn sharks? I saw quite a few, but this is the footage that came out the best. As always, they're adorable. As always, they sort of sit there and let you film them. They don't seem to care or are figuring that you don't see them because of their camouflage. I have yet to see a swell shark at Vets Park. It's been horn sharks. And here you can see the scaling, the rough tentacles on his skin. The swimming crab were mating as well. I guess love was in the water this evening. There were several sets of crab where one was holding on to the other and carrying him across Vets Park. Here's an up-close shot of that same breeding pair. They weren't too happy to have me shine my lights on them, but I left them alone after a few moments. I was surprised I didn't see any large sheep's crab, but I did see plenty of these, along with some Dungeness crab. This was a sleeping barred surf perch. I thought it was interesting to see the difference in his color pattern when he sleeps. I have no idea what this mass is. I start filming it with the +10 adapter and then switch over to the Macromate Mini. If anybody knows, once again, please let me know. It's some sort of biomass, and on the right hand side there's a tube worm that you can see. Also, if you notice, on the right hand side towards the bottom there's a large massive kelp. I didn't catch on to what that was until I rounded the corner and realized that it's either a juvenile sheep's crab or a decorator crab. Here's an up-close shot of the crab. It's hard to tell if it's a sheep's crab or decorator crab because they're in the same family. The sheep's crab just gets substantially larger. I was very pleased to have found this little guy, and as you could hear in the last shot, I called out to my friends through my regulator. Whether or not they heard me is a different story. A pic of him on the ground as you see him. They are extremely well camouflaged. They do an excellent job of hiding themselves from predators. This is a juvenile thornback guitarfish that I found on my way back to the beach. He was sitting in about 20 feet of water. There's a series of ridges of sand as you make your way back to the beach, and you'll often find rays and guitarfish hanging out in this area. This is a much larger version of the thornback guitarfish. And finally, I ended with a sand dollar. Overall, I was extremely pleased with the Macromate Mini and the +10 adapter. I'd highly recommend it to anyone who wants to do macro footage.